This is another episode of National Divorce Talk Raw. Today, we're going to bring you the little known story of Professor Jeffrey Sachs. Jeffrey Sachs is one of the most distinguished and well known foreign policy experts in America. Jeffrey Sachs is one of the most called upon, most referenced, most educated American scholars of foreign policy. He works for Columbia University. He has studied at Harvard. He has been allowed to speak almost anywhere and everywhere, and typically is referred to as an expert. Yet recently, something very strange has been happening to Professor Sachs. He seems to get censored wherever he goes. Now, I was told that America is a freedom-loving country with free press and an independent judiciary and a well-informed electorate, allowing us to think independently, and that our conversations were not censored, as we could find in totalitarian regimes such as China or Russia. Let me show you some examples that show that's a pile of garbage, and that America is no better. And in fact, America loves censorship, especially when the truth comes out. And the question I would have for you is, what kind of country does that? And are they truly a freedom-loving country that Californians can respect? I'll share the evidence in just a second. Well, let me show you the evidence, and then you can decide for yourself what this means about the United States. So recently, Professor Sachs talked about how the United States government, not Russia, blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. And for saying so, he was yanked off the air. So, foreign policy scholar is asked his opinion about the bombing of the Nord Stream pipeline. And he said, against the mainstream narrative, he doesn't think it's Russia. He thinks it's the USA. And in return, they literally cut him off. That's the face he made, like he was shocked that this happens in America. Let me show you.
Destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline, which I would bet was a U.S. action, perhaps U.S. and Poland. This is
Right, Jeff, we got to stop there. That's quite a statement as well. Why do you feel that was a U.S. action? What evidence do you have of that?
Well, first of all, there's direct radar evidence that U.S. Helicopters, military helicopters.
Stop right there. Stop right there. How dare you say that? Cut off, gets yanked off the air. In fact, it made the news, yanked off the air. The kind of stuff you see in Russia and China. But that's not all. In fact, I want to show you this. Last but not least, he destroys the myth that democracies are the most peaceful, the most violent country in the world. In the 19th century was the most democratic Britain, the most violent country in the world since 1950 is the US. And he gets shut down by the host at the Athens Democracy Forum. So they're literally having a forum on democracy and the idea of free speech and free conversation. And then he says something they don't like and they tell him to shut up right in front of the entire world stage watching. What was it that he said that was so horrible? Let's take a listen.
And one more point I want to make about democracy, because we're in a democracy forum where we treat democracy as the good. The most violent country in the world in the 19th century, by far, was perhaps the most democratic or second most democratic, and that was Britain. You could be democratic at home and ruthlessly imperial abroad. The most violent country in the world since 1950 has been the United States. It's been by far involved
Jeffrey,
in more
stop
women
now.
and more wars.
Jeffrey, Jeffrey, I'm your moderator, and it's enough.
Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, I don't get, so stop. That's enough. You stop talking. Literally showed you that twice. The guy is on TV talking. They brought him on for his opinion. And the moment he says something they don't like, shut up, stop talking. And then he's at a forum on democracy, the concept of free thought and sharing ideas. And he says something they don't like, and they literally say, shut up and stop talking. That's 2 times in a row. And what is it that he's saying that's so horrible? Well, he's saying actually America's not always the good guy. And that, yeah, it's a democracy, but this concept that democracies don't enact violence and horrible regime change and terrorism and destruction of the earth is total garbage. That's what he was saying. Let me show you the full speech, and then maybe you'll come to a different conclusion. Here is the full speech. Give me 1 second, and maybe you'll come to a different conclusion than what I did. Just, maybe it was taken out of context. Okay, all right. Let me show you the full speech, and you can tell me what you think.
That are held, and these different narratives have merit, and the solution in a world of different narratives is to speak. There are different narratives that are held.
Okay, guess we're going to have a problem. Doesn't want me to show you that. What Jeffrey Sachs was saying was, yes, China's a totalitarian country. And yes, Russia is a totalitarian country. But when we're looking over the last 150 years at the governments that were the most violent to others, not their own people, but to others, invading other countries, destabilizing other countries, invading them, killing people who were not their citizens, England and America by far. And they were democracies. And so his point is, you're saying democracies are better. He goes, based on what? Totalitarian Russia and totalitarian China invaded vastly few countries than American England and killed vastly fewer people that weren't of their own ethnic group. So where does this concept that democracies equal peace and nonviolence come from? Because the two biggest democracies that were the most violent over the last 150 years. When he said that, he was told to shut up at a democracy forum. I guess that's freedom. And that was, here you go. That was Jeffrey Sachs at the Athens Democracy Forum. Why was he told to shut up? How come this professor wasn't allowed to express his mind? Let me show you a little bit about him, just so that you know. He's not a whack job. So here's Jeffrey Sachs. He won 100 most influential people in the world by Time magazine. He was also named 500 most influential people in the field of foreign policy by the World Affairs Council of America. In 1993, the New York Times called him probably the most important economist in the world. He also received an award from the Harvard Graduate School of Arts and Sciences for his contribution to society. He received an award for the greatest public service by a private citizen, given out annually. He's also worked for the World Health Organization and the International Financial Board and the Congress and the World Bank and the OECD and the International Monetary Fund and Harvard and the National Bureau of Economic Analysis and Research. So he's not an idiot. He's well respected, well documented. Why is he censored? How come when he says something that doesn't fit the narrative of America's the good guy and always does the right thing and never does anything wrong, he's literally told to stop talking in a democracy, in a forum on democracy? Think about that for a second. A forum on the beauty of democracy, and he's told to shut up when he makes a factual based point on democracy. You know, there was a guy called Socrates, and he lived in the time of ancient Greece when it was the world's first democracy, at least purported. And he too asked difficult questions of the Greek government, and they told him to shut up and drink poison and die. So we know that democracies do have this pattern. And I just wanted to point out that a lot of times you hear in America that America's the good guy and every other country out there is the bad guy and these other countries are bad guys. Is that true? And if it is, why did this happen on two separate occasions? And does that mean we're actually a free society? And is this a society that you want to be part of, California, where free discussions based upon facts are shut down, like as if it happened on Russian TV? Something to think about. Okay, we'll be back with even more. Stay tuned and stay informed.